Imagine meeting future you 10 years from now. Would they be thanking you for the decisions that you made today or be trying to recover from them? If 10 years from now you don't want to find yourself exactly where you've always been, then grab your cup of tea and let's talk future you. I recently read the book that I've shared on this channel before, Personality Isn't Permanent by Benjamin Hardy, who is a renowned occupational psychologist. And I wanted to read more of his books because I absolutely loved his thought leadership. And I recently also read Be Your Future Self Now. And between reading the book, Personality Isn't Permanent, Be Your Future Self Now, and also reading The Alter Ego Effect, which I shared on this channel recently as well, and absolutely loved. And a really key takeaway that I've gotten from these books is that you aren't ever going to achieve your goals if you are pursuing them from the place of your current identity, because it is that shift in your identity that is going to have the biggest transformation on your behaviors. And that is what I really love about this conversation about future self, because it isn't just about your daily habits and the tiny tweaks that you are making to your behaviors. It is about this complete transformation in your identity that then completely transforms what your daily habits are. So, for example, in the book, Be Your Future Self Now, Hardy says, the future self concept is simple, yet rarely practiced. To make quality decisions, know where those decisions will take you. Decisions and actions are best when reverse engineered from a desired outcome. Start with what you want and work backward. Think and act from your goal rather than toward your goal. My point number 1, I'm going to call beast mode, and it is about identity first transformation. In the book, Be Your Future Self Now, one of the first stories that Benjamin Hardy shares is the story of James Stephen Donaldson, or Jimmy Donaldson. And he describes this high school student who was meant to be studying for a history test one evening. And instead of studying for his test, he started to record a few videos for his small YouTube channel. He decided that he wanted to create a series of videos that were for his future self. His channel had about 8,000 subscribers at the time. He recorded these videos that went for about 2 or 3 minutes for each video, and they were for these key milestones. He had a video called Dear Future Me that was scheduled and uploaded for 6 months' time. He had a video that was Hire Me in a year. He had another video that was Hire Me in 5 years. And he had another video that was Hire Me in 10 years. He didn't actually release these videos. They were all scheduled to go live in those milestones. And he was talking about what he hoped his future self would have achieved in that time and wondering what he could have achieved in that time. So, for example, in his 6-month video, he talked about really hoping that maybe he might have 15,000 subscribers and how crazy it might be if he had 20,000 subscribers by that 6-month milestone. And then in the other videos, he talks about wanting 1 million subscribers on his YouTube channel, particularly in his 10-year video. He says quite dramatically that if he doesn't have 1 million subscribers, then he would consider his life a failure. That last video for the 10-year milestone went live at the time of me recording this podcast about 7 months ago. And Jimmy actually did probably a lot better than what he expected he would. The video itself has 60 million views already. And the channel that it belongs to is Mr. Beast. And Mr. Beast, as you probably know, by subscribers, is the biggest creator on YouTube. He has, at the time of this recording, 480 plus million subscribers on his main YouTube channel alone. He has multiple channels with multi-million subscriber counts. He is also a billionaire, and I believe this is multiple times over as well. So he well and truly achieved his goal and far surpassed the goal that he had. But the point was, he was focused on this future version of himself. And a really great video to watch as well is Mr. Beast actually reacting to that 10-year video. And he describes, for example, that his parents had gone bankrupt a few years earlier. He talks about filming on his iPhone that was outdated and he couldn't afford an actual camera to film with for his YouTube channel. And he also describes being teased in school for talking about YouTube so much, for being so obsessed with YouTube. I think he talks about someone saying to him, YouTube is all you talk about. So it is truly amazing to see the transformation that Mr. Beast has from that first video that he records on a shaky camera in his bedroom that looks really quite low quality to who he is today and the absolute global presence that he has just in the span of the 10 years since he recorded that video. What he was able to do was to see the potential for what he could achieve in 10 years. And this is something that a lot of people don't necessarily do, which leads me to my point number 2, which is the end of history illusion. And to a degree, this does actually relate also to Mr. Beast, because Mr. Beast had underestimated what he could achieve in that time. But what he was doing that a lot of people don't do was looking into the future and knowing that there was so much that he could achieve in 10 years. He had this really big goal for himself to have 1 million subscribers while he had 8,000 subscribers. And this is where the psychology study about the end of history illusion is this really interesting idea that we tend to be able to see how much we have been able to change and evolve and achieve in the last 10 years, but we then think that we're going to have pretty minimal change going forward. So we place a lot of emphasis on the evolution that we had 10 years ago, but we think to some degree that we've now plateaued, that we aren't going to see that same level of growth in the next 10 years. So the psychologists that conducted this study, they researched thousands of people, and people in the study reported to have significant changes in their personality, in their values, in their preferences in the last 10 years. But again, they thought that this wouldn't change significantly going forward. And there are a few key reasons that could be driving people to feel that way. And one of them is this idea of almost this identity comfort, where we think, I've arrived, I like who I am, I assume I'll stay this way. There can also be this degree of effort blindness, where it's easier for us to consider things in retrospect, to reminisce about particular things as opposed to actually constructing things, to picturing a future that you haven't actually experienced yet. And then we also have on top of that this present bias where we overvalue our current preferences, our current tastes. The elite future self thinkers, they are able to have this future orientation of themselves while at the same time being able to collapse time altogether. This is what Mr. Beast was doing when he recorded those videos. He was recording those videos and making decisions for his future self as though he was that person now. He wanted to be a YouTuber. He wanted to be a big YouTuber. So he was acting in a way, instead of studying for his history test, that aligned with those goals. He was talking to himself in a way that aligned with his ambition. But what is really important to remember when it comes to the decisions that you are making on a daily basis is what I'm going to call, number 3, the routine paradox. Sometimes it is the very structure in our lives, the routines and the habits that we are striving for, that can also limit our potential. Now, if you follow this channel, you might know that I love to talk about routines and habits on this channel a lot. I've talked about, for example, my 4 a.m. starts and all of the habits that I do before I even start my workday. I've talked about how I read 150 books a year. I've talked about the hobbies of highly effective people, and I've also talked about how much I love the practice of morning pages journaling. It's something that I am very aware of because I am someone who loves to explore habits and routines so much. And I can get really excited about what particular habits and routines bring to my life and the benefits of those things. And I can often be really good at doing those things consistently. I'm really aware that they are the same things that could also potentially hold me back. And that is because you can also become comfortable in those same routines, which is why I'm always trying to constantly redesign my routines. And I spend a lot of time thinking about how I can push myself to a different level. So, for example, when I first started to read consistently, I was reading one book a week. And this took me a long time to get to that process. As I've shared on this channel before, this was not an overnight achievement. I was never usually much of a reader, particularly in my early 20s. But I pushed myself to be able to read a book a week. And what was meant to be a year-long challenge actually turned into something that I became quite comfortable with. So I kept doing this habit for several years. But what I found was as I became more efficient in my reading, it was starting to feel like what was originally hard was becoming more easy. So I started to then read 2 books a week. And eventually, more recently, I've started to read 3 books a week. And instead of just continuing to up that goal, I have, for example, now added things like audiobooks into my life as well. And I've really enjoyed the difference that this has brought to that particular habit that I have done. But that is just one example. I am constantly trying to change a lot of my habits to make sure that what was once a goal hasn't now just become something that is comfortable, because that means I'm still going to be staying exactly where I've always been. And this is something that the research also supports as well. In particular, it shows that, say, in our 30s, we start to really focus on optimizing. We start to understand our strengths and we play to those strengths. We start to repeat the things that have worked. We start to build systems and operate within those systems. So, this is where a lot of that paradox begins because we are focusing more so on efficiency instead of evolution. And it's your evolution that is going to help you to grow. It's going to help you become your ideal future self instead of in 10 years from now finding yourself exactly where you've always been. And this is often our brain just trying to help us by conserving our energy. So, a lot of the psychology behind this, for example, has shown that we start to default towards habits as opposed to really intentional decision making. So, we start to focus on doing that thing more consistently, which is what we're so often trying to aim for when we talk about high performance habits. But the really important part of that is to constantly be tweaking that strategy for intentional decision making. So, understanding that at a certain point, you may have switched into autopilot mode and you're trying to interrupt that pattern in a really strategic way. So, instead of the same thinking, the same circles, the same standards, you are instead trying to evolve through things like daily experimenting, through things like new experiences or new circles or new standards, and taking yourself off that autopilot mode and out of your comfort zone is where the magic can truly happen for your future self and to transform into the version of yourself that you truly want to be in 10 years. Thanks so much. Subscribe for more like this, and I'll see you in the next episode.